Grant Robert Sutherland. Grant Robert Sutherland, born 2 June 1945, is a retired Australian human geneticist and celebrated cytogeneticist. He was the Director, Department of Cytogenetics and Molecular Genetics, Adelaide Women's and Children's Hospital, for 27 years 1975–2002, then became the Foundation Research Fellow there until 2007. He is an Emeritus Professor in the Departments of Paediatrics and Genetics at the University of Adelaide. He developed methods to allow the reliable observation of fragile sites on chromosomes. These studies culminated in the recognition of Fragile X syndrome as the most common familial form of intellectual impairment, allowing carriers to be identified and improving prenatal diagnosis. Clinically, his book on genetic counseling for chromosome abnormalities has become the standard work in this area. He is a past president of the Human Genetics Society of Australasia and of the Human Genome Organisation. Early life and education. Sutherland was born in Bairnsdale, Victoria on 2 June 1945. His father had served as a soldier in World War II and qualified for the Soldier Settlement Farm Scheme, so when Grant was 12 the family moved to a dairy farm at Newmarket. As a teenager he bred budgerigars, which he credits for starting his interest in genetics. After completing at Newmarket High School, he left home and moved to Melbourne. He studied at the University of Melbourne, graduating in 1967 with a BSc major in genetics and a sub-major in zoology. During vacations he worked at the CSIRO as a technician in the team that was developing a vaccine for contagious bovine pleuropneumonia. Still at the University of Melbourne, he went on to graduate with an MSc in 1971. He undertook his doctoral studies at the University of Edinburgh, graduating with a PhD in 1974 and a DSc in 1984. Career. After graduating with his BSc in 1967, Sutherland started work as a cytogeneticist in the chromosome laboratory of the Mental Health Authority, Melbourne. In 1971, he became the cytogeneticist in charge in the Department of Pathology, Royal Hospital for Sick Children, Edinburgh, a role he held until 1974. After graduating with his PhD in 1975, Sutherland took up the role of Director of the Department of Cytogenetics and Molecular Genetics at the Women's and Children's Hospital WCH in Adelaide. In 2002, he moved to the role of Foundation Research Fellow at WCH, a position which he held until 2007. In 1990, he also took on the role of Affiliate Professor in the Departments of Paediatrics and Genetics, University of Adelaide, and became Emeritus Professor in 2017. Research. While at WCH, Sutherland's principal focus was on chromosomal fragile sites. Large family studies of genetic diseases revealed unexpected patterns where some men were carriers who did not display the disease themselves, but passed it on to their daughters. This was contrary to conventional genetic wisdom. There was no way a male could pass on an X-linked disease without having it himself, or so we thought, Sutherland said. We'd go to medical conferences with photos of these men, photos of their businesses and copies of their university degrees to show the skeptics they were normal. They didn't believe that a male could have this genetic mutation and be okay. The explanation was in the DNA, which Sutherland commenced mapping in detail. He found that the Fragile X fault behaved differently to most genetic mutations. It builds up as it replicates through generations until it reaches a threshold where the full-blown syndrome is triggered. Such a disease mechanism, where genetic abnormalities accumulate until they reach a critical level, had not been observed before. He developed techniques to observe fragile sites, which allowed him to specify critical DNA fragments on the Fragile X chromosome and led him to identify Fragile X syndrome as the most common cause of hereditary intellectual disability. In Australia, it affects about 60 children each year. These findings allowed him to improve diagnostic tools and techniques. making identification of carriers more reliable and ultimately improving prenatal diagnosis. As part of the Human Genome Project, his group mapped much of chromosome 16 and positional cloning of genes on this chromosome. In 1998, Sutherland and Associate Professor Eric Hahn discovered Sutherland-Hahn syndrome, which is another genetic disease that causes intellectual and physical problems among males. In 2004, they identified the specific genetic sequences that cause the condition. The discovery means that future generations who are at risk will be able to know if they are carriers and to test in utero for the disease. The proposal of prenatal testing to diagnose genetic diseases has sometimes been controversial for Sutherland because it raises the question of what to do if problems are detected. Service to professional organizations. Sutherland was the president of the Human Genome Organization, HUGO, from 1996 to 1997, and he was involved in establishing the professional body in 1977, which grew into the Human Genetics Society of Australasia, and he served as its president from 1989 to 1991. Recognition. In the 1998 Australia Day Honours, Sutherland was appointed a Companion of the Order of Australia AC for service to science, and in 2001 he was awarded a Centenary Medal. Other significant awards include 1983 Fulbright Senior Scholar, 1996 Julian Wells Lecture and Medal, Australian Genome Conference Board 1996, 1996 Orator, Errol Solomon Mayers Memorial Lecture, the University of Queensland Medical Society, 1998 Australia Prize, later renamed the Prime Minister's Prize for Science, joint winner with three others in the field of genetics, 2001 Macfarlane Burnett Medal and Lecture, Australian Academy of Science, 2001 Ramasiati Medal for Excellence in Biomedical Research, 2004 included in the Magnificent 17 Giants of Australian Research, having the most highly cited papers across all fields, 2013 Honorary Doctor of Medicine awarded by the University of Adelaide. 2013 the Australian National Health and Medical Research Council named him an all-time high achiever since 1994. He has been an honorary fellow of the Royal College of Pathologists of Australasia. Professional society fellowships include the Royal Society of London 1996 and the Australian Academy of Science 1997. In 2005, the Human Genetics Society of Australasia introduced the annual Sutherland Lecture in his honor, allowing outstanding mid-career researchers to showcase their work. Publications. Journal articles. Scopus lists 458 documents by Sutherland and calculates his H-index as 83. Books. Sutherland, Grant R. Hecht, Frederick, 1985. Fragile Sites on Human Chromosomes. New York, Oxford University Press. ISBN 9780195035421. Gex, Joseph Sutherland, Grant R. eds. 2003. Nucleotide and Protein Expansions and Human Disease. Basil Carger. ISBN 3-8055-7621-8. Gardner, R.J.M. Sutherland, G.R. 1989. Chromosome Abnormalities and Genetic Counselling, First ed. New York, Oxford University Press. ISBN 0-19-504932-2. Gardner, R.J.M. Sutherland, G.R. 1996. Chromosome Abnormalities and Genetic Counselling, Second ed. New York, Oxford University Press. ISBN 0-19-510615-6. Gardner, R.J.M. Sutherland, G.R. 2004. Chromosome Abnormalities and Genetic Counselling, Third ed. New York, Oxford University Press. ISBN 0-19-514960-2. Gardner, R. J. McKinley, Sutherland, Grant R. Schaffer, Lisa G. 2012. Chromosome Abnormalities and Genetic Counselling 4th ed. Oxford, Oxford University Press. ISBN 9780195,375,336.